So far we've looked at a range of different tools for evaluating a portfolio. But what you'll note across all of those tools is that they use a single measure for risk. Therefore, implicitly we're assuming that risk remains constant across the entire life of the period that we're evaluating. In this learning objective, we discuss the problems with evaluating a portfolio that changes in composition and hence maybe changes in risk profile across time. So to identify problems associated with changing composition, let's imagine we have the following example. Let's say that we held a portfolio for 2 years. In the first year, we invested the portfolio such it was in low risk, low return assets. So our excess returns each quarter for 4 quarters was -1%, +3%, -1%, and then +3%. Let's then imagine that in the second year, we maybe used leverage or invested in higher risk, higher return assets, such that the excess returns each quarter in the second year were -9%, +27%, -9%, and +27% respectively for each quarter. So how would we go if we wanted to evaluate the performance of this portfolio year on year? Well, what we can do is we can look at the first year. So across the first year, our average excess return, taking the average of these 4 quarters, was 1% per quarter, and our standard deviation of returns was 2% per quarter. Again, both of those can be calculated using the conventional formulas. So our Sharpe ratio in the first year was 0.5. 1% excess return divided by 2% standard deviation of excess returns. Similarly, let's evaluate the second year of the portfolio. In the second year, we can calculate that the average excess return was 9% by taking the average across these 4 quarterly returns. And the standard deviation of returns of these quarterly returns was 18% that we can also calculate. So once again, 9% excess return divided by 18% standard deviation. In the second year, we also had a Sharpe ratio of 0.5. Now let's suppose that across this 2-year period, the Sharpe ratio of the market was 0.4. So what did this mean? Well, in year 1, we outperformed the market, and in year 2, we outperformed the market, which is why I've written down here good and good, outperformed in both years. However, what would happen if we had evaluated our Sharpe ratio over that full 2-year period? So we had incorporated a period where we've got a change in the structure of our portfolio as opposed to just evaluating over the low risk and high risk periods. If we evaluate our Sharpe ratio over the full 2 years, the average quarterly return across these 8 quarters gives us an excess return of 5%. And the standard deviation of returns across these 8 quarters is 13.42%. Therefore, if we take the Sharpe ratio, we find that the Sharpe ratio we calculate across this 2-year period is 0.37, and hence now we're finding the Sharpe ratio underperforms the market. So that is, when we evaluate each year on their own, year 1 outperformed the market and year 2 outperformed the market, but due to the change in the portfolio composition that occurred after the end of year 1, if we evaluated the portfolio over the full 2 years as a whole, we would actually find that the portfolio appears to underperform. So this example identifies the problem of trying to evaluate the performance of a portfolio that changes in its composition across time, and the key takeaway message is that you need to ensure that the risk profile of the asset or portfolio you're evaluating remains constant in order for your portfolio evaluation to be valid.